Hello and welcome. This presentation of diplomacy drama is brought to you by the Bush Education Team at the George H.W. Bush Presidential Library and Museum. My name is Ivy, and I'll be working with you today. Thank you for joining me. As you might be able to tell, this is going to be the elementary version of the program as opposed to the secondary version. However, if you're watching this at whatever your age level or grade level, you can still pick up some neat tricks along the way, I'm hoping. So let us go ahead and get started. Okay, so it looks to me that I see the first thing I'm noticing here is the words top secret, and then they're crossed out. I'm also seeing George Bush's signature. How about y'all? What else are you guys noticing? Just take a moment. I guess the other thing that's popping out to me, I could say, but how about you tell, if you have a pet in the room, go ahead and tell your pet. If you're watching this video with someone, just turn to your shoulder partner and tell them what you see. Go ahead and tell them some of the things you're seeing in this letter. Okay, a few more seconds. Excellent. So another thing that pops out to me just looking at it is this national security review being underlined. Very curious. Well, let's go ahead and read the letter together now. Okay, so we have this top secret letter. The White House, Washington. Okay. National Security Review. Memorandum for my fellow Americans. Subject. The success of the United States is dependent upon you, the people. Ooh. My fellow Americans, the people of the United States rely on their president to serve as their chief diplomat around the world. Okay? I work hard to build relationships with leaders from all over the world in order to protect the citizens of the United States. Okay? Two of my greatest diplomatic accomplishments were the fall of the Berlin Wall and Persian Gulf War. I was going to send information on each event to some of our elected leaders, but the labels on the boxes fell off. Can you help me categorize this information between my diplomatic accomplishments so our current leaders can follow the example that has been set out for them? Diplomacy is hard, but I know you are up for the challenge. Thank you for your service to our country. Good luck. The future of our nation is in your hands. Sincerely, George Bush. Okay, so, that's quite a lot. Well, the first thing I'm going to say is that there were two George Bush presidents so far. We've had President George H.W. Bush, which was Bush 41, and then President George W. Bush, which was President 43. However, if we're looking at the context clues, so we're thinking about, context clues are the things kind of that surround an issue. The fall of the Berlin Wall and the Persian Gulf War both occurred during President George H.W. Bush's presidency. So that's Bush the father, Bush 41. But we'll go into more detail about that. I think. Maybe. Ooh, can't really spoil the surprise, can I? All right, so let's go ahead and start with identifying the problem. Okay. So our problem is this. The labels have fallen off the boxes. Okay, so we've written down our problem. If you would like, you can have a piece of paper and write down notes as you follow along with me, or you can just keep track of them in your head. So we know the problem is the labels have fallen off the boxes. So, what events need relabeling? Go ahead and look at the text. What two events need relabeling? Answer in your head or write it down. Got it? Okay. If you said the fall of the Berlin Wall and the Persian Gulf War, you are correct. That's how we're going to solve the problem, maybe? So we know what the problem is. We know it needs relabeling. But what's our solution? So now we come up with a solution. You can discuss this with anyone in the room with you, whether that's a pet, a person, an adult. Okay, so we know what the problem is. The box labels have fallen off. We know what the events are, which is the fall of the Berlin Wall and the Persian Gulf War. So the solution is to look at the information inside the boxes and relabel these boxes. So let's go ahead and get started. And before we do it, let's just take a moment to get some background information, get those brain juices flowing. You know, it's been a day, right? No matter what time of day it is, it's been a day. So let's just take a moment to get those brain juices flowing again. So we have two systems of government that we're going to review. There's, of course, more than that, but for today's purposes, when we look at the Persian Gulf War and the fall of the Berlin Wall, we really need to know about democracy and communism. So in a democracy, people have the right to private property. Economic decisions largely rest with the people, and the people elect representatives who debate law, and which means power is seen as coming from the people being ruled. However, what does that really mean? Let's think of this. I like to think of this in terms of actually a teddy bear, okay? So I want you to think of your favorite stuffed animal. It could be a teddy bear, it could be a stuffed lion, it could be an action figure. I'd accept that. Like, some people have favorite action figures. It's all good. I want you to think about your favorite one, though. Okay? You have it pictured in your head. You have your favorite action figure / stuffed animal. In a democracy, your favorite stuffed animal belongs to you. Okay? So if you have a stuffed animal and you play with it, you own it. It is yours. Okay, so it belongs to you because you have the right to private property. Now let's think a bit about communism. In communism, the state owns all the property. Therefore, all property is public. That means it's owned by everybody, or in essence, held by the state and shared by everyone. The state makes economic decisions for the country. The state is ruled by one person or party. So let's go back and think about our favorite teddy bear or stuffed animal, action figure. In communism, the state owns all property. Technically, a stuffed animal or an action figure is property. Therefore, because the state owns all property, your favorite stuffed animal would belong to the state. Even as you played with it and loved it and all the things, it would still belong to the government. That is an essential difference between democracy and communism. Property and who owns it. Okay, so now that we have that idea in our head, the idea of who owns the teddy bear, let us move on to the next step. All right, so to begin, let us talk about the fall of the Berlin Wall. So I see quite a bit of dense text in front of me, but this is great because together we will read it and we're going to comprehend it, and it's going to be awesome. So what I would like you to do is to take your finger or the soft end of a pencil, like the eraser end, or you can use your eyes and you're going to follow along, please, as I read this. You can read aloud with me or just listen actively, okay? So, let's start with the background. After World War II ended, Germany and its capital, Berlin, were divided into 4 zones. On May 8th, 1949, the French, United Kingdom, and U.S. zones were combined into West Germany under a democratic republic government. Here we go, that word, democratic. East Germany was controlled by the Soviet Union under a communist government. Remember, we just went over this. In communism, your teddy bear, or in communism, the teddy bear belongs to the state, and under democracy, you can own your own teddy bear. Berlin, let's get back to it. Berlin was also divided between West Berlin, which was as a democratic republic, and East Berlin under communist rule. Okay, so that is a lot of locations just for the first paragraph. So let us look at a map because maps are very useful as a tool. So we have our division of the 4 zones. Let's start with that. So we have the UK here, the United Kingdom, in this corner. We have France right here in this bottom left corner. We have America in the bottom right corner. And we have the Soviet Union in this upper right corner. So these 3 right here, the UK, France, and America, joined together to make West Germany. So this, you can think of these 3 colors as a whole block, okay? And then this was all under democratic rule. And then you had East Germany under the USSR. So that would be this upper portion right here. However, what they were also talking about was the city of Berlin as well. So we have this tiny little part right here. As you can see, it's surrounded by the rule of communism USSR. And let's go ahead and take this tiny one and look at it bigger right here. So we can see that this one is also divided out into different categories. So we have France at the top, we have the UK in the middle, and America on the bottom. So these 3 parts made up West Berlin, which was it democratic or communist? Where America, UK, and France together democratic or communist? Okay, if your answer was democratic, you are correct. So West Berlin was democratic. And then this section right here, it was part of the USSR and it was also it was communist, just like the surrounding area. So in a minute, we're going to be talking about the Berlin Wall. It divided the city, yes. So it did run between this part of the city and this part of the city. However, it also ran all the way around the western part of Berlin. So it surrounded this whole area right here, okay? So you actually had planes coming in and out to deliver supplies. Okay, so now that we kind of have an idea of West Germany, East Germany, West Berlin, East Berlin, let us go back to our reading. So we left off right here. From 1949 through 1961, more than 2.5 million East Germans escaped to West Germany, with many of them escaping by crossing the checkpoints. So let's pause there. Checkpoint. What do you think the word checkpoint means? Go ahead and tell your screen. What do you think the word checkpoint means? Okay, so I hope you've had enough time to tell your screen what you think checkpoint means. Let's go ahead and break down the word a little bit. So, check. What does it mean to check something? It could be making a check mark. It could be, another use of the word is double checking. So you can be looking into something. You can check what is in your backpack by opening up your backpack and looking to see what you have inside. So that's another form of checking. You can check to see if you are correct at something. So your teacher can check to see if your work is right and leave a check mark if it is. Things like that. So it's kind of looking at something, studying it, analyzing it. Okay, so we know the first part of that. So we're looking for something. And then the word point. Okay, so when you make a point, it's at a particular location. It could be a point on a page that's still at a particular location. It could be a point on the map. It can be a point on a road, but it is all in a particular place. So a checkpoint, if we're combining the ideas, at a checkpoint, we are checking for something at a particular location. You know, just kind of a fun way to think about it, to kind of break down that word to make it understandable. So checkpoint between East and West Berlin, what they're saying is that there were little like units of like gates and stuff, and there would be soldiers there that would check people's passes, their paperwork, what they had on their person, things like that, to see if they would be allowed to cross the checkpoint of the wall between East Berlin and West Berlin and vice versa, meaning back and forth. All right, so let's continue. The numbers fleeing to the west became so bad that overnight, East German soldiers laid down 30 miles of barbed wire. This closed off East Berlin from West Berlin. When families awoke the next morning in West Berlin, many realized they were now cut off from other members of their family who lived across the street in East Berlin. So let's go back to the map real quick. Remember, when they're talking about laying down that wire, they're talking about surrounding the whole of this part of the city. Okay, all of this is West Berlin, and a wall was built overnight, first with barbed wire and then with concrete and bricks, kind of varied by area. Eventually, the East German Communist government, communist again, built a 15-foot high concrete wall and topped, see, even teachers make mistakes. A 15-foot high concrete wall topped with barbed wire and guard towers. East Germany and the Soviet Union said the wall was to protect the people of East Germany, but everyone knew it was to keep East Germans from leaving. Because remember, people would flee from this part of Berlin into this part of Berlin, from the east to the west, and from there they could, because now they were part of a democracy, they would have more freedom of movement, so they could go out to other parts of West Germany, from there travel out to other parts of the world if they so desired. Okay, so that's just a little bit about the Berlin Wall. So let's talk next about the Persian Gulf War. But before we start going into this, let's just take a moment. Let's just set ourselves up for success. Words are hard sometimes. What I would like you to do is safely, within reason, and, taking account to yourself. You don't want to push yourself too hard, but go ahead. You should feel no pain. Just roll your shoulders a little bit back. Just roll your shoulders back. You can close your eyes if you would like. Just roll those shoulders back. Now roll them forward. Okay. Now your shoulders are all warmed up. Now I would like for you to reach behind yourself with your hand and give yourself a pat on the back. Good job. You got through that first reading. You have practiced with the words democracy and communism, studied the word checkpoint, looked at the map and really studied it. Just keep giving yourself a pat on your back because my goodness, you did a good job. All right, deep breath in. Deep breath out. Okay, we are ready for the next part. You got this. So again, we're going to read it together. On August 2nd, 1990, the Iraqi army, led by Saddam Hussein, invaded and occupied Kuwait. Let's start with looking at a map. I think that might be helpful. Okay, so we have, on this map, we have several different countries, some of whom you may have heard of in the news, or maybe not. That's okay either way. So we have Iraq right here. Okay, this one's Iraq. And then we have Kuwait. Between Iraq and Kuwait, which is the larger country? Between Iraq and Kuwait, which is the larger country? Okay, if you are leaning towards Iraq, you are correct. Iraq is much larger than Kuwait, right here. Okay? Okay, so now those are our two big actors or players in this drama. So let's read a little bit more. This invasion was condemned by many nations and the United Nations Security Council. President George H.W. Bush immediately condemned. So we've seen this word twice, condemned here and condemned. I want you to think, is this going to be a positive thing or a negative thing? So is condemning like praising, or is it a wag of the finger? Okay, let's start from this sentence again. And you're going to think about that. Is condemning a positive, praise, or is condemning a wag of the finger, like, no, this is bad? President George H.W. Bush immediately condemned the invasion, as did the governments of Great Britain and the Soviet Union. The UN Security Council authorized the use of all necessary means of force against Iraq if they did not withdraw from Kuwait. All right, I'm going to pause here. So the UN and President Bush are condemning Iraq for their actions, and they're saying we'll use all force if Iraq doesn't back away from Kuwait or withdraw from Kuwait. So is condemning like a good job, or is condemning a don't do this? Which one is it? Okay, if your answer was condemning is along the lines of don't do this, wag of the finger, like no, you are correct. Okay, so to condemn something is to say that is not right. You should stop doing that. All right, let's go back to our reading. After Hussein refused to withdraw from Iraq, the tension is building here, a coalition, that is a group of countries that work together, of 35 nations, led by the United States, worked to defeat Iraq and drive them out of Kuwait. Okay, so Iraq was condemned. They were asked to withdraw. That did not happen, so a coalition of countries worked together and drove them out. President George H.W. Bush met with Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher of Great Britain and the leaders of many other countries, especially the leaders of Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, to keep them informed of the progress in liberating, in other words, freeing Kuwait. All right, so let's look at the map again. So here is Saudi Arabia. So they were one of our allies, part of the coalition of liberating Kuwait. Okay, so we now have an idea of some of the circumstances surrounding the Persian Gulf War and the fall of the Berlin Wall. So here are our labels. We have Berlin Wall and Persian Gulf War. So, and here is a box without its label. So in a minute, we're going to open up this box and we are going to look at the information inside and then we're going to label it as either belonging to the Berlin Wall or to the Persian Gulf War. Okay, so you are now investigators. You are helping President Bush sort out this information, which is vital just for national historical record. My dear researchers/investigators, you ready? Want to roll those shoulders again? Give yourself another pat on the back. You got through all that review? And then let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so it looks like our first piece of information is a map. So let's look at some of the key words that we are seeing here, okay? So just take a moment. You can write down your answers, the key words, so the things that are popping out to you the most that you're using to identify if this is the Berlin Wall or about the Persian Gulf War. So just go ahead and look at it a little bit. What pops out to you? Some of the countries are colored in certain ways. There's some interesting titles and dates. Okay. I hope everyone has at least one keyword that they're using to justify why they think this is either the Berlin Wall or the Persian Gulf War. So let's go over a couple of the ones I found. Mind you, this won't be all of them, so if you have a different one, that is awesome, and I'm glad to hear it. But here is a list of what I came up with. So, the first thing I noticed, or one of the things I noticed, is Iraq, the country. So if we look here at the key, or the legend for the map, we have the name of a country, Iraq. We also have the name and the title right here. And the Persian Gulf War definitely involved Iraq. Okay, what's another thing? 1991, so the year. So from the background information we read together, we know that Iraq invaded Kuwait in 1990. And so the coalition came together around 1991. So it's within the same time period. It makes sense because the Berlin Wall stuff was more so in the 60s. So we're looking at the correct time period, really. Coalition. So that was one of our vocabulary words from the reading. So a coalition is a group working together, in this case, a coalition of countries. So we can see them here as they're shaded in, and we can also see the words here, coalition. So with those three pieces of information, I feel pretty confident that I can label this box. What do y'all think? You think you can do it? Is the map, which has a coalition based in 1991 and had Iraq on it, is it the Berlin Wall? No. Is it the Persian Gulf War? Yeah, I think I'm willing to bet it's the Persian Gulf War too. So let's go ahead and label this box and we're going to put it aside. So, yay. Ready for the next one? Yes? Oh, come on. I know you're saying yes. Yes. Okay, great. So the next one is another blank box. So let's see what's inside this one. Okay, and here we have an image. Just take a moment to look at the image and see what you're seeing. Who's in the image? What are some of the objects in the image? What are some of the actions you're seeing in the image? So those key details. Give you guys a few more seconds rather, not minutes. Okay. I think we're ready to discuss some of these key details. Yeah? All right. So one of the things I've noticed is right here is there's a concrete wall. And we know from the reading that the wall that surrounded Berlin, while it started off as barbed wire, it did get filled in with some concrete wall. Let's see what else is happening. There's an action. This concrete wall is being torn down. I honestly wonder how they cut it. That's like fascinating. Oh, what are these soldiers doing? So they're linked arm in arm like this, and they're filling in the gap of the wall. What do you think they're doing? I really don't have an answer for you. I can only guess. But to me, it looks like they're blocking in the hole. Fascinating. So these people are tearing it down. We have people who are clearly in uniform blocking the hole. So which side do you think is the west side, and which side do you think is the east side? Just looking at the image. So the west side being democracy, the east side being communism. Okay, keep your answer in mind as we continue. Okay, that's another thing. Yes, graffiti. So if we notice on this side, there is graffiti. So that tells me that the people on this side were allowed close enough that they could put graffiti on the wall. That's important. Okay, and the last thing I did notice, and hopefully you notice as well, that there is a mix of uniformed people and non-uniformed people. Okay, so for those who are like, oh, just please confirm it for me already, Miss Ivy. Which side is West Berlin and which side is East Berlin? I got you. So this side right here is West Berlin, and this side over here is East Berlin. We can tell from the graffiti. So these citizens were allowed to approach the wall and get close. On the eastern side, your general citizens, were not allowed to get near the wall because people would try to escape over the wall, and that was not allowed. It would defeat the whole purpose of the wall. So seeing these people in uniform and them being mostly on this side of the wall, that tells me that this is East Berlin, and the graffiti and the people in plain clothes over here tells me that this is West Berlin. So we were just talking about the wall. So is this one a Berlin Wall or Persian Gulf War? Yeah, it is definitely the Berlin Wall. Okay, I think we can take this box and we can put it back on the shelf and start with the next unlabeled box. Okay. If you need to, you can roll those shoulders again. kind of stretch out a little bit, just being careful, not to stretch too far or hit into anything. Just, take a moment. Take a moment. You can wiggle a little bit in your seat if you need a wiggle. Sometimes I find wiggling very helpful. Okay. All right. Wiggled. Stretch my shoulders. Okay. Don't know about you, but I think, dear researchers, we are ready for our next box. So, behind box number 3 is, drumroll, another picture. Okay. So take a moment. I want you to look at this picture again. Just kind of trying to see some of the key details. What is happening in this image? What are these children doing? Okay, let's talk about this. Let's see. So, to put it bluntly, how I would word it, now you can have it worded differently. That's perfectly fine. You can word it in your head or have it written down. The children are recreating what they have seen. Okay, that's what is happening, at least to my mind. You might have said there's some children playing at being soldiers. There are children who are building a wall out of bricks. But these children definitely are playing. You can see how happy this child is right here. But they are playing at what they see in their world. So what they know is a wall. And so now they're remaking it. Okay, so let's see. Yep, if you said something along the lines that there's a wall, you definitely are right. There's children on both sides of the wall. And that was very true. I mean, just think about the city divided. So there would have been children on both sides of those walls, families on both sides of those walls, and sometimes children and families divided by that wall. Okay. And both sides have their guards. So what do you think of this picture? Just in general. You can tell the screen, you can tell your favorite stuffed animal, you can tell anyone you're watching with. What do you think when you look at this picture? What's happening? Okay, I'm sure those were amazing answers. I wish I could hear them. So let's go ahead and label this picture. Was it the Berlin Wall or the Persian Gulf War? All right, I'm going to go ahead and say the Berlin Wall. Simply because, well, all the things we talked about. There's a wall, and the kids are just remaking what they've seen. All right, let's put this box aside and start the next one. In fact, this is our last box. Okay, so we ready? Our last box. All right, let's go. Okay, another image. Let's take a moment to look at it. What do we see? Okay, let's go over the details together. I don't know about you, but something that jumped out to me big time was the American flag. So, well, I'll go into more detail about that in a second. Think about the implications, the why that may be important. Okay? Another thing is camo, specifically desert camo. Okay? So we're thinking desert. Where might we have lots of desert? Then the other thing is, yes, there are a lot of soldiers in this picture. I mean, there's also President Bush, of course, but there are also a lot of soldiers. Oh, And then the last thing is President George H.W. Bush. Okay. So he was president during the early 1990s. So we can kind of date the photo as well. It's in color, which is helpful. So we have an American flag. We have soldiers. So let's think about that a little bit more. Can you tell me, in your words, why these details, what about these details can tell us if this is the Berlin Wall or the Persian Gulf War? Go ahead, tell me. How might we use these details to decide? Or any other details? So I know that America was part of that 30 plus country coalition, and that when the United Nations and President Bush condemned Iraq for their invasion of Kuwait, we had soldiers join the coalition to push Iraq out of Kuwait. So it makes sense that there are soldiers and that there's an American flag and desert camo, because in the Middle East there is quite a bit of sand. It's not the only thing, mind you, but there is quite a bit of it. And then we have President Bush. Okay, so let's go ahead and say between Berlin Wall and Persian Gulf War, this is probably the Persian Gulf War. Excellent. Okay. So good job. Yay! You have sorted successfully all of the boxes that got mixed up in President Bush's office. Whew, we did it. All right, this time I want you to take 2 of your hands and give yourself a double pat on the back, because woo, not only did you read and do vocabulary, you investigated and sorted. Talk about upping your skill levels. Like, you have leveled up greatly today. Good job. In fact, you can even give yourself a round of applause. To do that, you just clap your hands in a circle. Then you have a round of applause. However, we are not quite done with our day just yet. There is one last task available to you using the skills you have developed in sorting the boxes. So this is our Pillars to Live By activity. So we have 3 pillars, and these are pillars dedicated to President Bush and just some of the life lessons that we can really learn from his life and career. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a pillar, such as this lifetime of service. We are going to look at the images and the captions, and we are going to decide which image or caption, which idea best fits with each pillar. Okay, yes, there are labels over here. However, you can make an argument really to place any of these ideas wherever you would like. The matter is just kind of thinking it through yourself and deciding. Let's have some fun with this. Instead of starting with the first pillar, let us start with the second pillar. Just to add a little twist to, your normal example time. Pillar number 2 is putting people first in decision making. Putting people first in decision making. So please take a moment and think, what does it mean to put people first when you're making decisions? Okay. So how I like to think of it is it means you're really thinking about, well, like it says, thinking about people, but it means you're not necessarily thinking about money. Like, oh, but this will make me more money if I do it like this. You're thinking, oh, but this will benefit more people if I do it like this. You're thinking, How can I best help others? Things like that. So, a great example of this is when President Bush signed the Americans with Disabilities Act, also known as the ADA. He actually had quite a few people oppose him on this one. He had to kind of go against his whole party line with it, but he wanted to put people first. All right, so what you're going to do, like I said, is you're going to go through. You can pause here if you like, and you're going to go through and just kind of fit an example for each of the pillars, whether it's just a description of a picture, it is writing down some of the captions, or you can even come up with your own original examples of what does it mean to help serve others across your lifetime? What does it mean to put people first in decision making? And how can building relationships build a better world? Okay? And when you're ready, you can press play again. The only other thing I really want to say is thank you so much for joining me on this video today. I hope you guys had fun sorting out the maps and pictures and that we learned a little something about the Berlin Wall and the Persian Gulf War. Real quick, if you want more information, we do have more programs on our website at bush41.org. And you can ask us questions that you might have at bush.education@nara.gov. So thank you again for joining us today, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your day.